Yeah.
Hey, Kristen. How are you?
Hello, you're back. My brother, thank you, man.
Right, tell them how it is, man.
Hey.
How much we stifle. How are you today?
We stifle.
I'm good. All right, have a good show. We good? Yeah, I'm good. You all right? Cool.
Paid for by the African American Voter Registration.
2 minutes, though.
Yep, 2 minutes.
You good?
It's time to represent your neighborhood. It's time to be a voter.
It's about to go down.
Choose to be a voter. You get to
It's about to go down.
That's how we do it.
Down in the town.
Have your families back
Right.
in your neighborhood.
No good evening.
No good evening.
No
No KBLA.
You got it. You spray your room, you good?
I didn't spray my room.
Go on, get it, man. You got time? Go on, get it.
I got a little time.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Yeah, good.
I need to spray my room. It's my ritual.
Joe, hold on, I got it.
No, we good.
We're adjusting the lights for the live for the stream.
Okay.
Is that good right there? Is okay? You see there? Is that good?
I can.
You can?
Yep.
All right.
Transfer easily to the E-Line to connect to Santa Monica, Culver City, USC, and downtown. Ride the K to comfort food, culture, and an improved commute.
So,
Seven
so
new K-Line stations now
adjust your mic right
Learn
quick.
about K-Line destinations.
Is that good?
More at metro.net.
Is that good?
Oh, that one.
KBLA Top
There you go.
1580 is the official.
Put your mic by
station
your
of
face
the
so we can
day.
see where it is, though, so we can adjust it for the camera.
I'm gonna be right here.
Right there?
Yep.
Right
Agenda for
there.
America. An African American
Yep.
perspective.
All right.
A national conversation.
You're up in 45, though.
I got it.
Incorporated. KBLA
Great show, man.
1580.
Here it comes.
Take it to the bottom.
Produced by
Yep.
Travis Smiley. Tonight's conversation is the state of black men.
You got everybody but Small. Small's not there.
Star
We'll get him on.
We'll get him on.
But yeah,
Okay.
They'll tell you. You see the thing? You see?
Yeah, I
Butch
see
and-
it.
yeah. So just start there.
Okay.
Just say we're joined by all three. And when he's there, we'll let you know.
Okay.
All right. Here we go, though.
For America, an African American perspective, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. Here now, so Williams.
Welcome, my peoples. A serious conversation, a needed conversation tonight. This is episode 3 of Agenda for America, an African American perspective. Tonight's topic, the state of black men in America. Man, oh Manischewitz, we not about to play no games tonight. Let me get right to it. I got to introduce my august panel. So, Dr. James Butch Rosser. I want y'all to understand something about this brother. This brother right here is a surgeon, and we need a medical perspective on today's show. He is an educated man, he is an accomplished man, and he's an intelligent man. And Tavis Smiley introduced him to me, and I've recognized that he's a no-nonsense man. And we need that type of masculinity displayed on today's show. Dr. Rosser is a general surgeon with a special interest in diseases of the esophagus and stomach. He's a board clinical doctor. He is certified, and I'm just happy to have him in here. Dr. Rosser, welcome, brother.
Hey, good evening. So good to be here, man.
Thank you so much. And then, my brother, my friend, I met this brother in 1997, and when I tell you we are brothers, none other than the legendary, the foundational piece of lyricism in hip-hop, an author, an intellect. This brother is none other than, you know him, KOOL, Mo D. What up, Mo D?
You know what's up. It is what it is.
Yes, sir. And then, let's not play around. We got to get right to it. Professor James Small. He is a scholar, activist, dynamic speaker, organizational consultant. He is also the CEO of Sanaa Lodge Enterprise, Ghana, Ltd. Hey, let me tell you something. This brother right here, I've just recently gotten close with him, or a little closer than I was before. This brother right here is a wealth of information. When he reminds me of that old African proverb. I don't know which country, but it says when an old man dies, a library burns down. Well, this library is alive. Welcome, James Small.
Thank you, brothers and sisters, and Brother Modi. You know, you're a legend in your own right, sir.
Man.
You're senior. You know? Practical.
All right, so let's get right to it. Today's topic, the state of black men in America. And I framed it a little differently. Who we were, who we are today, and who we are becoming. I'm just going to ask questions, and I really want to be fed by you guys' wisdom and insight and experience. And I'm just going to throw it out there really quickly. I'm going to start with KOOL Modi. Modi, you and I have been talking on the phone back and forth for decades now. But you have said some really profound things about hip hop and where it started and where it is currently. I want you to break down, what is rapsploitation?
The era that we evolved into, rapsploitation, I should repeat the question, is the era we evolved into because America is a business, first and foremost. It's a business about its business, and when they put the screws in you, they say it's just business, and that's the acceptable behavior that we've grown accustomed to. And hip-hop following the lead of America, as opposed to following the lead of actual hip-hop was about to be from when we started it, it actually became all about the money, which is always what it comes down to. The bottom line is you could say anything, do anything, as long as it served the profit. Because our oppressors were in control of our art form, they basically co-opted every idea and every message we had. So if you had an idea about how to change the community or bring something positive back, and they didn't, the oppressors didn't view it as commercially valuable, the record never saw the light of day. So that's why we got and some of the greatest artists, and I'll say taking no slack away from them whatsoever, because Notorious Big is one of my favorite, absolute favorite artists, but I could always dissect the difference between his flavor and his talent and what his message was. And I think that the message, the underlying message, was more important in many ways than the actual flavor and the talent that was going on. And because our oppressors were in charge of us, it got to the point where I would have to go back to the record company and say, I want to talk about this. And they would say, that's not viable. And they had the arrogance to say, your audience wants this. And they start dictating to you what they're telling you, your people are talking about what they want to do. And they're not in any clubs, they're not on any streets from any neighborhoods. They had an arrogant position of, we know what your people want. So, by the way, when Public Enemy, which is my all-time easily favorite group, hands down, when Public Enemy came to the forefront and blew up the way they did, because it wasn't supposed to work. They didn't think it would work because there was no appetite or no market for it, so to speak. Putting it in a business sense, there was no market for it. But the fact that Chuck D did what he did and the way he did it, it connected with people, and they were surprised. And when they saw that happen, and I say again, one of the big telltales that I can't prove this, but I know for a fact, just from spiritually feeling it, when Public Enemy, when they did the Fight the Power record, and Spike Lee aligned with them, and the record got that much more exposed because of the movies, and the business side of it started turning a profit, we immediately went from conscious rap to gangster rap being the most prominent art form in hip hop. Because if the oppressors in charge, you would much rather deal with us killing us as opposed to us focusing our anger on them.
Wow.
And Public Enemy had the pulse and was showing America that Black America was absolutely more conscious than they ever thought. So they mixed the messages up, I should say, and made gangster the most prominent selling art form, and that showed us, or the younger people coming up, because it wasn't the older guys. The younger people coming up were looking at how to make as much money as they could, And not that everybody was anywhere near as good as Ice Cube or Snoop, so to speak, but they were using that as a role model and the template of what the pattern that they're asking for. And that's how gangster rap became as prominent as it was.
Wow. Dr. James Small, I want you to build on this. Rosser, you too. I'm going to James Smalls, and then I'm gonna wrap it up with my closer, Dr. James Butch Rosser. This question right here. Has today's hip-hop music, in light of what Kool D just shared, has today's hip-hop music made Hillary Clinton's horrible statements about black kids being super predators somewhat prophetic?
First of all, I want to praise my brother for his analysis, Kool D. That was just excellent. I couldn't have said it any better, brother. That was an excellent analysis and historical truth. And I want to give a historical example before I do my little piece and close out. Everybody knows Teddy Riley and Blackstreet, and they were rhythm and blues. And I was sitting with Teddy when he got the word from Interscope, and I called the name, let him come and talk to me, and said that we want y'all to do rap, and they meant gangster rap at that time. And when Teddy and I said, no, we're not doing that. Then they said, your stuff will leave the warehouse show. And so when the brothers did what they had to do to make as much money as they could make, and then disbanded Blackstreet, because Blackstreet had the contract with them, not the individuals, and they called on them and said, okay, you owe us 2 albums on God, so now you got to reconstitute God, pay us what you owe us as a punishment. Okay, now just drop that out there. Well, do you know what happened? Because I had kids in the industry, and I was seeing what was happening with them. But what your analysis is just perfect. That's exactly what happened historically, and you were there as a part of it. And so what Hillary said, let me tell you, there's nearly 80 million of us in this country, and the percentage of our children that have been injured and damaged to the degree that they're now self-destructing is a very small percentage, but media make it seem like a bigger percentage than they are. But the negative influence that gangster rap, which is not run and motivated by us, but by the money of those moguls who wanted to negatively socialize us while making money off of us at the same time, did have its damage. Because young people, just like I did when I was young, a lot of what influenced my thoughts, my attitudes, my feeling towards women, my feeling towards other people was the music of that day, right? And the artists doing that social commentary of that day. And the same now. And so the people who are controlling what we get to hear is not the young black writers of these lyrics or the young black performers. They're not controlling what we hear. Somebody else is controlling what we hear. And so that somebody else is demanding what the product is going to be that they're going to pay for. And that product does have a negative influence on the population. It's called socialization.
Wow, heavy stuff. Dr. James Butch Rosser, I'd love to get your opinion and perspective on hip-hop's influence. And in light of what Kool D and Professor James Small just shared, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about what was shared with you?
Well, as I sit back and I reflect on everything that my 2 colleagues said, I must stay in my lane. And that lane is medicine. And when I think of it, what they just said, one word comes to mind for me: translation. There's a translation in the embrace of gangster rap and the expressions that so liberally smear violence and hatred. And that is the result of the 5th leading cause of death of black men in America, 15 to 44, is homicide. That we're talking about a real translation. And it threatens to make the black man.
He's giving a good answer, but make sure you keep Butch in his lane. The medicine is don't let him get scared if you push him too far out.
Using the absence of these young black men because of homicide, because of poor health outcomes, and incarceration makes their existence obligatory. Now, this is the real deal. I'm not dealing with platitudes. I'm not dealing with theories. I'm dealing with facts. And as John Adams said, who was a slave owner, facts are stubborn things. So there is a result of this historical progression and presentation of gangster rap because of what Modi said, the financial remuneration of the American dream.
Dr. Rosser, let me hit you with another question, because I believe that these are interwoven discussions, right? Music makes us feel good or bad. And if the messaging, because I remember back in the day, we learned how to talk to women from the records. The social game rules was in written in the lyrics. Marvin taught us how to talk to them, right? Now, today, the way we treat women, you look at the lyrics and you can see that there's a denigration of women. There's a degradation. There's almost a disdain for women. But when we're listening to this type of music, does it have an effect on us, our health? This is why I asked the question, can you give a short statement that sums up the state of black men's health in America? I know music has to play some kind of part if you're listening to something that destructive.
But two words can sum up the state of black men's health in America: life and death. Those are the two words. But our quality of life on this journey is inferior. And that includes our relationship with our queens and where we place them on the mantle of our consciousness. And it translates into data and statistics that are undeniable, because the third leading cause of death in women is unintentional injuries. And with those unintentional injuries happens to be mixed in domestic violence, which based on what you hear in the lyrics, you can see how the action translates in almost a direct line. The other thing is death. Because the fact of the matter is, our lifespan as black men is shorter. And you're going to hear me talk about this more and more. It leads to the invisibility of black men in America. And that cannot be allowed to stand.
Wow. Modi, I want you to jump in here, brother. I want you to jump in here. What were your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what Dr. Rosser just shared about that? And he talked about domestic violence, and I'm gonna cover that in a second. But what are your thoughts about black men and their health? And I want to know, what is your regimen? How do you stay healthy? Because you've been doing this for a long time. How do you stay healthy, Mo? And do you see that some of your friends, maybe some of the people you grew up with, are really struggling with their health today?
Well, as you know, anybody who's paying attention, hip-hop in particular has taken a beating over the last 2 years. We've lost so many people. I mean, colon cancer, all kinds of things. That's just on an internal level. But, for me, if you make it specific, I was kind of cast aside for a minute, because I don't follow anybody genuinely. And I think, even this whole computer generation that we're going into, they're programming you psychologically to look forward to being a follower. So it's kind of like part of the institutionalized thinking that they're using to exclude us, as opposed to using you. I don't want to discriminate. As a matter of fact, just firsthand that we're talking about now, finally doing my novel, my life story. But the culture vultures have appropriated our culture, and according to them, I don't have a certain value because I don't have a digital footprint. And I keep telling you that's intentional, the digital footprint that they talk about is going online and talking, and I can't even understand people are posting because I have a good plate of dinner at a restaurant. I want to take a picture of it and show people of that and get likes, and people are trying to get followers by that way. And if you have a lot of followers, that'll get you a TV show or an idea, or get you a record deal in many cases. And as the other side of it is, they use it actually to exclude us more than it is inclusion. And it's basically can monitor what you say, what you think, and what you're doing, what you're about. Anybody that's coming with any kind of revolutionary thought is absolutely automatically excluded. And they can justify it by you not having a digital footprint, I should say. So that's part of the equation that I'm looking at myself personally, because how I am. I'm just anti-computer on a whole nother level. But just looking at everything again, I've never smoked, I never drank, I never got high, I never had that conversation. It was not a part of my makeup. And at one point, and I'm very clear, because I'm talking about being on stage, I'm going to say again, on tour in 1988, where people would cheer when I would talk about laughing at, I made it a very uncool thing to be a drug dealer. And by the end of the tour, people were not as cheering as loud for me saying that. I could say it every time. I can't believe how many people talk to drug dealers. Some woman screamed, and I said, I can't believe women screamed, and said, yes, I talk to drug dealers, and everybody would laugh. At the beginning of a tour, that was very strong. By the end of the tour, then people were not cheering as much. It was almost like got to the point where I went from being the favorite to almost damn near an outcast because of my position, my thought process. So at the end of the day, they're making sure that they channel or watch who's saying what they're representing. And I've turned down, I can give you a long list of things, like when I'm on the Budweiser Superfest, I wouldn't do a Budweiser commercial because I said, you're not going to use my popularity at the time when I'm as hot as I am to sell beer to my people. It just won't happen. But most people are looking at, and again, when I tell you, I talk to you personally, so the deals were very, very handsome at the time when you're coming from poverty. Anybody coming from poverty, we're looking at financial space, is very, very inviting. So the fact that I turned down tons of those things, quite frankly, New Jack City was supposed to be myself and Ice-T. And, because the producers were in it, and I definitely say Wesley Snipes did a great job, but the whole point was, the irony, almost as a joke, was I was going to be a drug dealer and Ice-T was going to be the cop. Because Ice-T's history as a gangbanger, they thought that the role reversal, I said, I understand the thought process, but I cannot ever use my heat or my value to actually portray that image in Hollywood, because that was the beginning of hip-hop being looked at as some kind of other vehicle besides just selling records now. So they thought we had value on that level. So while we're trying to do films or whatever, and I was turning things down ahead of time because I couldn't just look at the monetary value. And that was always the way they tried to get you, the monetary value. So so you can make movies, you can do whatever. I'm like, well, I would sacrifice it. And what you don't know, and again, if I'm not pulling any punches, the oppressors are so wicked that they will wait you out. It's almost like, well, if you can't sustain the heat level, then we'll just wait till you cool off, so the offers won't come to you anymore. So by the time the offer's not coming to you, and I made a joke with you a long time ago, and I said, if you took all of my money, you took all of Jay-Z's money, only one of us would sell drugs. I would never sell drugs as an artist, because that's my thought process. So I think the consciousness is not a part of the equation in hip-hop, and for the most part. Not to say that there aren't people, because I'm sure there are, but the thought process for me was always about, what is your consciousness doing for the culture that you're doing it for? And I think that part of the equation was something that the oppressors at the labels never liked.
Wow.
They would just do a commercial because it was about how much money they would make.
Wow.
It was very, very frustrating for me at one point.
Mo D, come on, save some of that fire, brother. Save some of that heat. Listen, Professor James Smalls, I got to pull you in here. You think I'm about to deviate from the discussion, but I'm not. the state of black men in America. We not playing right now. I got this question and I'm gonna pose it to all panelists, but I want to start with Professor James Smalls. What are the core tenets of black masculinity, and are they under attack?
Well, the core tenets of black masculinity is to be a husband. James Small, not Smalls. To be the male center of a family unit.
Mm-hmm.
To be someone who informs and instructs the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the role.
No.
And it has been under attack since we've been in North America. We have kind of softened to understand there's a war that has been waged against the African population from day one. The war has never ceased. It has never even abated. They've just changed methodologies on how to carry out the war. And so the black male and the question of masculinity isn't a question of gender. We tend to make that look like it's a question of gender confusion or gender clarity. No, it's a question of societal roles.
Mm.
Okay? And the role of the African male could be traced back to the beginning of time. The role of the African male was to seek partnership with the African female.
Mm-hmm.
For the purpose of creating a family, for the purpose of perpetuating your species in a healthy manner.
But why?
Optimally healthy manner.
But why is it under attack? Because a lot of people don't know what an attack looks like.
Mm-hmm. An attack looks like anything that will oppose the false notion of white supremacy and the rule of social order like racism in America and the rest of the world. That's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against greed. We're fighting against a minority groups that's ruling the world through fear, tyranny, terrorism, and dominance that leads to death and destruction. And that population, which is the European population primarily, with some allyship with the Asian population of rulership, have made sure that they dominate the world, dominate the resources of the world, so that they can have the creature comforts that they want in the world. Okay? And so the African population and African culture as a culture offer the only real alternative to European culture of domination, destruction, and death. And so you can't allow the Africans to rise up and come up with a model that will challenge the prevailing model that's currently ruling the world economically, politically, and culturally.
I gotta get Dr. James Butch Rosser in here. Brother Rosser, what are your thoughts on what the great James Small just laid down for us?
Well, as you look at the battlefield and its landscape, we're looking at, a simplified war plan. What is that simplified war plan? Attack the strongest link. That is why there's been a concerted effort to erode the masculinity and standing of the African American male in America, not just to other cultures, but to the African American female.
Ooh, wait.
No. Don't stop me.
Oh, you might as well.
I know you didn't want to go there.
No. I'm not gonna stop you. I just gotta move forward to break and then come back and let you have more space to continue, cause you're cooking. So just hold tight when we come forward. Man, the state of black men in America is on fire. We're gonna come right back with Dr. James Rosser. Yo, it's on fire tonight. We on fire.
It's not a moment. It's a movement. And we're still marching. KBLA
Thank
Talk
you.
1580. Unapologetic Power to the people. If Black Lives Matter, make
Yo, it's on fire.
vote by November 8th.
It's on fire. It's on fire.
Purges, voter identification laws, voter intimidation.
Yeah, I'm good.
Felony disenfranchisement, polling place closure,
Yeah, I got
voting
it.
limitations,
Small.
partisan redistricting,
Definitely, like
partisan
always,
Supreme Court
on our show, we
rulings,
say when we come forward, don't say back,
invalidation of
say
the
come
Voting
back
Rights
twice.
Act.
Yeah.
That's just, it's just a different format.
It's a different format.
I got it.
Right.
Make black votes count. Tamir
Thirdly,
Rice, Ahmad
whenever
Arbery,
you get to these
Breonna
things where
Taylor,
you went to Ross with a minute to go,
Yeah.
minute 20.
I should just talk.
No, you could have done that or say to him, Dr. Ross, I got a minute and a half before I got to cut in.
Yeah.
Let me get you started on this question. We'll continue on the other side.
Right.
That way when he starts giving it,
He was ready.
He knows where he is.
Yeah.
He knows where he is.
Yeah.
Everything else is good. You good? You good otherwise?
I'm good, brother.
I think in this back half, now that everybody's had their opening thing, pick the pace up.
I get it. Yeah.
Smalls talking a long time. Smalls is not talking as long.
You get to decide what is best for you,
slow.
neighborhood, and
Okay. I'll speed him up. I'll speed him up.
In this second half, make it more round robin.
Yeah.
Just get everybody in, just get more,
I'll speed him up.
less speechifying and more.
Yeah.
You follow?
I'll speed him right up.
You got it. But
Yeah.
let Bush finish his point though. 'Cause he was on fire.
Oh no, he's on fire. I'm gonna let him go.
And Bush don't normally talk this way, man. So you got him.
I got him in a space right now.
Metro's newest rail line connects communities
Yes.
like West
Okay.
Adams, Crenshaw District, Baldwin Hills,
Yeah.
You got him going there.
Inglewood,
Butch is talking right now.
You good though?
Yes, sir.
Culver City,
cooking now.
USC, and
Oh, come on,
downtown.
brother.
You got everybody's tuned in. Got tons of folks watching.
Yeah.
7
So
new
let's just
K-Line
keep the pace up. We're
stations
good.
now.
Okay, we
Learn
got
about
it.
K-Line destinations, how to ride,
Coming live in about 20 seconds.
net/K-Line. KBLA
Remember
Top
now, at the
1580
top of
is
this
the
hour,
official station
Top,
of
you're
the
gonna
K-Line.
tease for the next 3 hours. Next 3 guests on. Stay with us for hour
Welcome
2.
back
Okay.
to
At the top of
Agenda
it.
for America, an African-American perspective. A national conversation presented by Smiley Audio Media Incorporated, KBLA Talk 1580, and executive produced by Tavis Smiley. Tonight's conversation
Y'all
is
back
the state of black men
behind the
in America,
scenes.
and features an all-star panel who we will rejoin in just a moment. The moderator of this evening is Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason on KBLA Talk 1580. We hope you're enjoying Agenda for America, an African-American perspective. Here now, Zoe Williams.
Welcome, the voice of reason. I'm Zoe Williams. You know how I do. We got 30 minutes left in the first hour. But let me just give you a quick tease of what the second hour is going to look like. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, my good friend, is in the building. He's in studio. Minister Tony Muhammad, as well as George Fraser. But I have to allow Dr. James Butch Rosser to really open up. He was about to go somewhere, and I want to make sure he's got space to do it. Go ahead, Dr. James.
Well, we talked about the continuous erosion of masculinity with African American males and black men in America. It is purposeful. And the erosion is not just in overall society, but is particularly targeted to erode the masculinity of the black male with black women. Black men do not get the same level of care in America, and therefore, guess what? There's a 6-year difference between the lifespan of an African-American male and an African-American female. And when you dig down deeper, you can see the inklings of the trap. African-American males have a greater unemployment rate. Employment, healthcare benefits are directly related to lifespan. African-American males are not only unemployed, they now are making less money. You're a male in America, which usually means that you have an advantage, but African-American males don't have that advantage, and it's translated. Now, you look at women, African-American women, the great strides. Now we have more African-American women going to med schools than black men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see the continuous erosion of masculinity and ability to take care of your family and the ability to walk with your head up because you have a job and you're responsible, and that is systematic.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. James Butch Rosser. We appreciate it. Let's keep it going, guys. Let's move it. Let's get going. Cool Mo D. Now I know you heard what the brother said, man. And I recall this phrase that Malcolm X said many years ago. And Malcolm said, this is 40 years ago, 4 decades ago. Malcolm said that the black woman was the most disrespected human on planet Earth. In light of what Dr. James Butch Rosser just said, he said, it makes me ask this question. With the combination of mass incarceration, unemployment, low education, homelessness, and police brutality, are black men now the most disrespected people on planet Earth? Modi.
Well, one of my next records, well, we're not doing records anymore, but one of my next music projects or whatever starts off saying, I am suffering from generational post-traumatic slave disorder, PTSD. And I say PTSD is generational because, as my brother Dr. Small said earlier, we've been at war from the very beginning. And slavery, we don't see that as a war, or we don't term that as a war, but it's the uncivil war before the actual civil war. And then even when we were free, the next thing was Jim Crow. So they've been fighting to keep that status quo going from the very beginning. So at the end of the day, and ironically, I don't think it's an accident that rap / hip hop was actually under attack the way it was, because we were actually doing what they were talking about. We're talking. So if we're talking, we can have the conversation. And they definitely do not even want the conversation to be elevated at all. So at the end of the day, they had a vested interest in making gangster rap popular because it gave you a hyper version of masculinity in the most violent sense and against each other. So we had this hyper violent side projected, and you can't, because we're people that are not a monolith, understand that, but there's a whole level of nuance. So you love your father, but if your father's abusing your mother, if you show him as an abuser and not as a lover, a father, whatever, and you make him one-dimensional, and you project the one-dimensional side of the equation, that the kids take their cues from what they're looking at in the elders. So there's absolutely racism, sexism, ageism, classism, all those isms, schisms work simultaneously, and they do a great job of projecting what part of the image that they want us to focus on. So, you're a gangster, so I'm a gangster, and that's another thing that we have to always stop doing. I think I told you this before.
Yeah.
We have to stop defining ourselves from the white man's perspective, and basically, like, being a gangster. How did gangsters so-called become cool? A, because it's a juvenile thought process that sees hyper masculinity as violence, and I'm not taking nothing, I'll take your money, I'll do this, I'll shoot, whatever. And only the violent part of the equation was that was the only thing that was focused on and talked about. We never even focused on our brain, we never focused on our love, we never focused on any other aspects of ourselves. So when you start to break it down that way, we start to get us a one-dimensional version of masculinity and vilified because it was projected in the gangster and the most violent space or whatever. And like I said, I don't like the music myself. I'm from hip-hop, but I don't like the music per se. But that has nothing to do. I can always separate. I absolutely love Snoop, and I absolutely love Ice Cube as a human. And you get to meet them, you see they're not that way, so to speak, all day long. But the image that the record companies will make sure that they projected that side, they would never project the side of Ice Cube being married to his wife all that time, all that years. They didn't even deal with the issue of him being a father. And now we know his son is acting also now, so we kind of see the results of it, but we wouldn't focus on it at the time when he's doing it with NWA at all. So again, and just like I said, to this day I say, and I talk to you all the time, so I tell you, Jay-Z is actually a genius as an MC.
Mm-hmm.
But the narration, the conversation, they keep the narrative going. They focus on him being a hustler and becoming a rapper, but they don't talk about his actual genius and his
MC. Yes. Right.
They talk about Asia. They and to this day, that's the archetype that they kind of promote. Because again, 50 Cent is number one, right? That I could say just because they're prominent now. But again, when you see BMF and Power and all these things on TV, I'm like, is the only success stories of black men in the 70s and 80s, is the only success stories out there, or the interesting stories out there, or the gangster stories, or the gang crime families? That seems to be the only thing that they want to do. And I think that back to it being more intentional, that, like the brother just said, is very intentional. They know exactly what they're doing. I remember I wrote a script one time, and literally one of the notes came back, it's not enough violence and not enough sex in it.
Wow.
So I had a whole different perspective of black life. Like, so my story cannot be told because I never drank and I never smoked and I didn't do any violence. I didn't do any what I call the dumb young stuff. I don't want to curse it on the
thank you. No, you cannot curse. Thank you, brother.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I didn't do a lot of the dumb stuff that, because there's some ghetto cliches that go along with the ghetto. And the fact that I didn't fit any of those ghetto archetypes, then my story doesn't have an appeal because it's not something that they want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Back to everything comes down to the monetary value. So they absolutely control the narrative.
Man, thanks, Mo. I appreciate the insight. Professor James Small, I need you to be that spiritual mortar to pull this whole mosaic of conversations together, brother. A lot has been said, and Mo just hit on something that's really, really big. A lot of the gangster rap and the persona that is wrapped in the record is partially PR. It's partially PR. It's partially marketing and promotion.
Socialization.
Ooh.
Socialization of a population. Socialization is where you get your values, your interests, and your principles. Someone else is controlling our values, our interests, and our principles. I've worked for the last 5 years as the chief consultant on The Godfather of Harlem. Right? And the war I've had to fight over the last 5 years, if I didn't have Forrest Whitaker as a partner that would support me, we wouldn't get nothing out of that. The Bumpy Johnson story, to give him a wife, I said, no, the black man got to have a wife and a family. They said exactly, KOOL, what they said to me, to you, to me. They wanted the violence and they wanted the sex. That's what sells. Right? And I go like, I want to see this man with a family, with a wife and children. I want to see him sitting around the breakfast table. Yes, he's a gangster. Bumpy Johnson was a gangster. I knew the man in his real life, I'm the successor to Malcolm X. When Malcolm was assassinated, I took over as the imam of the Muslim mosque at 21 years old. And so we paired the Malcolm story with the Bumpy story. And at first they rejected it, but they realized that you can't sell another gangster story just as a gangster story unless you create another kind of a story. Let's create a story of the black community where he's a gangster because you gave him no choice. But he simply wanted to be a black businessman. All right? And let's try to work that. And that's his best friend, because in real life, Bumpy Johnson, the gangster's best friend was Malcolm X. They played chess every Sunday. Bumpy Johnson beat Bobby Fischer twice at chess. So let's talk about that. Let's do some things about the black man that you don't want to let be normal. And we're in our third season. We just wrapped the third season last Friday. And we didn't get the promotion we should have gotten even by the people who put up the money because we killed so many white people. But the point is, someone else, another ethnic nation or allied ethnic nations that run the corporate structures of America have been in the business of making sure that the black male, that the black man don't become a dominant figure and the socialization process of the black community. Remember, socialization is how you get your values, your interests, and your principles. At the foundation of the black community is the black family. So if you destroy it, and I think the doctor explained it so wonderfully in terms of how you do the impoverishment and the marginalization economically of the black man, how you erode his ability to have control of the black family.
But I'm confused. They say that black men have access to the patriarchy. But what I'm hearing from the august panel is that we are disenfranchised in more ways than one. So how can two things be true? Because people say, two things can be true. How is it that we have direct access to the patriarchy? I do know that a lot of black men, especially through the peacocking through our music, yes, we want to live the life of our oppressor. Yes, we want to have what the oppressor has. But just because we want to have it doesn't mean we have it. So when I hear you are, in context of black men, when I hear you guys have access to the patriarchy, it seems like a conundrum to me. You guys are breaking it down how disenfranchised we are. Can somebody explain to me, can I get James Butch Rosser, Dr. James Butch Rosser, to explain that? Do we have access to the patriarchy, or are we still subject to white supremacy? Which one?
Well, I think it's as simple as this for me. We have access, but we've advocated the throne. Talk to me. Talk to me. Let's keep it real. Because of what Dr. Small said and Modi said, with the systematic disenfranchisement of the black man in America, has caused us to have a warped sense of what masculinity is. Everything that is spouted on gangster rap that someone equates to masculinity is the antichrist of masculinity. Ooh. And if you can't be a man, you can't claim the throne.
Modi, your thoughts on James Butch Rosser?
Amen corner over here.
Amen corner, yes. Come on. Talk to me, Mo. Listen, I mean, because I'm really trying to understand it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the brother, the academician, Dr. Tommy Curry. He wrote a book called The Man Not. And what he talked about was there are a lot of myths about black manhood in America. One of those myths, he breaks it down this way. He says, talking about a certain type of logic, he says, in fact, this is the product of a long-standing colonial history dating back 1868 in the history of the suffrage of or by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Part of the argument for why black men should not have the right to vote is because they are a radical, tyrannical class, and if they got power of the vote, they would abuse and whip their women. Now, when we start breaking down the data around domestic violence, the most violent gender is women. They just categorize it differently. Now, Dr. Rosser may have to explain this for us, the difference between intimate partner violence, the difference, common couple violence, intimate terrorism, right? These are all different levels, and they have the CTS, Conflict Tactics Survey, and what they found in my study, reading the works of Benjamin Carney out of UCLA, what he said was the most violent gender are women, but their violence is categorized under something called moderate violence, which encapsulates kicking, punching, spitting, pushing, throwing things. They say now they use the CTS, the Conflict Tactics Survey, to show And a lot of people don't like using it, they say, because it doesn't equate for for strength, for the strength of men. When men get violent with women, they hurt women, they break women. And the assumption is men should just absorb female violence. Your thoughts on that, Dr. James Butch Rosser?
Well, the way I was raised in Mississippi, is that you have to give ultimate respect to women, even when they are out of their minds.
Ooh.
We all have experienced a woman that emotionally has gone over the top and has had a break with reality. Now, I was raised to be able to absorb that because that's what a man does. But in our generation now, with this warped sense of masculinity, we then are going to meet force with force. And the thing about a man meeting force with force is that women become broken. Now, this goes back to the systematic socialization that Doc talked about when it comes down to warping our values by a purposeful portrayal of a false sense of masculinity. Now, so that's my posture. Now, you're asking what is the high ground? It's the high ground my grandmama and granddaddy, mom and daddy taught me that, there are times when a woman, especially a black woman, is going to lose her mind. And you have to be man enough to weather that storm because you're a man and not the warped shell of a human homo sapien that society has warped you into thinking that you are.
Wow. Professor James Small, I need you to keep it going, man. I need you to keep it going.
Yes, sir.
Lord.
Let me, as the father of the term post-slavery trauma syndrome, I did my first lecture on that back in 1992. Post, the past, slavery is the condition, the harm that was done. Post-slavery trauma was the result of the harm of genocide that we call slavery. Syndrome is that it continues now. And most people don't use my PSTS because they don't want to deal with the continuum. Okay. The trauma, post-slavery, the syndrome. And so what we are seeing is two cultures and two value systems clashing. We talk as though the European value system of what a man is, what a woman is, what a family is the only measurement to solve this problem. There is an African value system. There's an African concept of a family. There's an African idea of truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, and reciprocity. But we are not allowed to bring that system to the table. And so we're trying to seek conflict resolution using the system that caused the conflict in the first place. And it'll never work. You'll never solve the problem that way. The problem between the black man and woman in the society, the American society, is that we both are trying to be clones of the white man and women for just the sake of survival itself. And it's not going to work.
So you telling me right now, the majority of black men in America are simply clones of white men in aspiration? Oh, please, go deeper.
Yes. Because when we talk about value systems and worldview, and we only talk about a couple hundred years, we've only been here 400 years, right? We were in Africa practicing something for millions of years that's embedded in our subconscious, but we were not allowed the sanctuary to be ourselves. And the best opportunity we had to have a sanctuary was the black church. And so we hid our African self in the black church, but now we can't even find it because we put on the white cloak of who we should be. And in our daily lives, we're imitating white people and trying to deal with conflict resolution. And we are not going to ever solve the conflict because it is the very conflict resolution instrument of the European value system that is causing the conflict between black men and women.
Wow. Okay, so now I have a question for the entire panel. I want everybody to give me a truncated answer because we're up against the clock towards the end of the hour. Who were we? Who are we? And who are we becoming? Dr. James Butch Rosser, your answer.
Well, I think we were a people, as Dr. Small said, that had our own set of values. We had our own kingdom. We had our own way of doing things. And then we came to America. And then we had to go into a radical survival adaptive mode. And that radical adaptive mode, it held us back from taking our foundation from Africa and then having it evolve to another level. But what we are supposed to do now is take account of the fact that the system, the black men, has tried to turn us into the invisible man.
Wow.
That has no posture, no standing, no value, because the system is constructed to keep you down in the basement. So what we have to do, and this is just talking about medicine, there's not enough gender and race data that's being gathered to guide us toward those solutions for the African American male in America. And that is going to be our way forward. And I say it, of course, toward what I do, and that is my job as being a healer.
Wow, thank you so much, Cool Mo D. We've got 3 minutes left, so you got to make it quick, and then we're going to wrap with Professor James Small.
Well, I heard everything everybody said. A thousand thoughts going and go. Of course, this truncated thing is a little too short for me, but it is what it is. The European effect, and I say European MC, my hip hop world.
Yes.
European has absolutely affected us on many levels, and we got Surviving R. Kelly and Surviving this and that. Like the real documentary I'm doing is called Surviving America. That's what it is. As black people, it's just black men in general, but we turn to art of survival actually a way of life. So you don't get the full, you don't even get the nuance of us. You get one note versions of what we are, how we present, what we do, and we don't get the real nuance levels of what's really happening with us. So I think, again, if we can just tap in, because I think I told you another 3 man for the next hour. The thing with black women, I know we're talking about men, but black women, they don't believe in their magic anymore. They don't believe that there's a magic in them. So because you don't believe in our magic, then the effect of that, because a lot of times, whether we don't accept it or not, we know, especially boys growing into men, but men but we do things to cater to women in many ways. And if the black woman ever starts believing in her magic, black men will actually respond and react to that in a very different way. And I think that's part of the equation. So I say, if I'm talking to a young guy and I'm telling him to get your rap together, I'm like, focus on making her understand her magic.
Okay.
That's what, instead of I'm trying to get something, like, that's to get some.
Right.
Get her to tap in, and that's the real thing. If you tap in instead of looking for the outside, it's already in you.
Man, Mo D, thank you. You only left James 30 seconds. You only left him 30 seconds. My goodness.
That's okay. And I can do it really quickly.
All right.
African culture was a culture where we understood ourselves to be God having a human experience. We understood ourselves as human beings to be aspect of the divine essence having this human experience. And our concept of the divine is the totality of creation itself, the universe and nature. And that we were an aspect of that universe and nature interdependently. That was our culture. We have tried to clandestinely practice that and disguise ourselves within the context of white European culture in America. using the church as our own sanctuary, which is an umbrella of white European culture, and we've done well. But in doing well, we've forgotten the fact that we are God having an experience called us.
Wow.
No one can disprove that.
Wow. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Kool Mo D, Professor James Small, and James Butch Rosser. Hey, I appreciate you guys for dropping jewels on what it means to be a black man in America. Listen, this is Agenda for America, an African American perspective. I'm Zoe Williams. When I come forward, hour number 2, panel number 2, and the heat shall continue.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Woo wee! My brother!
Yes, sir.
Hey man, it's too long, man.
Oh, no, man.
It's too long.
It's good to see you, my brother.
Yeah, give him that one. It's too long.
Yes, sir.
Come on, it is too long. Now, hey, Andy.
Thank you, sir.
Andy. Oh, he on the phone. Can somebody call Modi and tell him I can't talk to him right now? What's up, brothers? All right now.
That's good. You good? You good? I'm real good. Okay.
What's your excuse?
You ready to cook? I know you. I know my brother ready to cook.
God is ready.
Let me get my brother right. Let me get my brother right in here. My brother ready to cook. I'm not even worried.
Don't give it away.
Yeah, you have a seat, brother.
Your neighborhood's back. And make a plan to vote today.
Come on in. If we could get him, they probably gonna close the door, but
Yeah, we will close the door.
yeah, if we can get a chair, he can definitely sit right behind you guys. That's no problem.
Or he can stand.
Okay, well then there you go, brother. He said he used to it. My brother.
Fraser.
I got it.
Like you rate,
I've been practicing that.
This guy's name is Fraser. If you refer to him, it's not Fraser. It ain't like Joe Fraser.
Oh,
it's
Fraser.
F-R-A-S-E-R. Fraser.
Fraser.
Yes, that's exactly
Fraser.
Yes.
K-Line stations now open. Learn about K-Line destinations,
Live in 30
how to ride, and
We
more
good.
at metro.net/K-Line. KBLA Talk 1580 is the official station
Oh
of
man,
the
we on
K-Line.
fire tonight.
Welcome back to Agenda for America, an African American perspective, a national conversation presented by Smiley Audio Media Incorporated.
That's Zoe's
KBLA
mic?
Talk 1580.
So drop your mic right there so I can hear you.
Produced by Tavis
You gotta
Smiley.
go. Yep.
Tonight's conversation.
We try to see Tony's face through that camera. Bring that mic down. Bring down those pictures of Tony's face. There you go.
Panel who you will meet in just a moment. The moderator of this evening is Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason on KBLA Talk 1580. We hope you're enjoying Agenda for America, an African American perspective, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. Here now, Zoe Williams.
Welcome to Agenda for America, an African American perspective. This is executive produced by none other than Tavis Smiley. Tonight's topic: the state of black men in America. We on fire tonight. Hour 1 was crazy. So you already know hour number 2 is about to take off and go in an entirely different direction. Let me just say this. Being a black man in America is not for the weak. It's not for the weak. And if you could, I guess, people say we should journal, right? Journal your feelings and journal your experiences and things you've been through. If black men journaled every day what it meant to be a black man, the compendium that would be compiled could educate the world so they wouldn't have to misinterpret who we are. And it would also empower us as self-authors. Everybody else got an opinion and a definition, and oftentimes we follow the definition of others. We have to reclaim the pen of self-authorship. In our first hour, we had a great group. I want to thank that group. It was Kool Mo D, Professor James Small, as well as Dr. James Butch Rosser. This hour, oh, my brother is in the building right now. We about to cook with grease. You understand? and I don't like messing up his new name. I know him as Minister Tony. Like, if I got a problem, I could call Minister Tony Muhammad and say, Tony, what do we got to do? And Tony will let me know. But the Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, gave him a most powerful name, brother.
Yes.
Abdul Malik Sayyid Muhammad. Did I get it right?
You got it right. You right in there.
Come on.
Real close.
My brother is in the building. Of course, we have none other than, man, this brother right here is the glue. I call him the economic glue. He knows how to connect the dots. Brother George Fraser is in the building. Welcome, George.
You said it right.
Hey, come on.
Got the doctor.
Hey, doctor.
You got to have a doctor now.
Well, come on. Well, come on in here, doctor.
I'm up in here.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Doc.
And then let me not get this wrong. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene is in the building. What up?
Tap and peace to my brother Zoe Williams and to the family. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh man, I appreciate y'all. Let's just get right to it. Your teacher has been teaching for over 60 years. What is it? 60 plus now.
Absolutely.
So I got to ask this question. How in the hell are black men beneficiaries of white male patriarchy? I got to ask, brother.
When you say how they're beneficiaries.
Yeah, how do we benefit from white male patriarchy? Because I hear a lot of people saying that by virtue of our gender, we have a natural inroad into white male patriarchy. I need to understand how.
Well, I mean, I don't know what that means to you, but I don't experience white male patriarchy.
Come on, brother, talk to me.
I only know black male patriarchy, which is rooted in God himself. See, blackness is not just a color. Blackness is the essence of God. See, black is the essence from which all other colors come from.
That's right.
And this is why the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the black man is God and he is the father of all ethnic groups. They all come from us. Our problem is we have taken on the mindset of white supremacy. You don't have to be white to have the mindset of white supremacy when he took from us everything. Our God, our name, our language, our culture. See? And so a role reversal has been made. So I don't know. I came out of thinking of black or white male patriarchy. When I came into the nation, I was taught the nature of who I am, and I am a direct ancestor of God himself.
Come on, that's right. Oh, Lord, we gods with amnesia. Dr. George Fraser, can you please expound on what the good brother Minister Tony said? George, you there with us?
I'm here.
Yeah, can you expound on what our good brother just shared with us?
Well, your engineer was talking to me. I couldn't hear anything anybody said. We were just trying to get my sound straight.
That's all right.
So if you can give me
a primer.
Executive summary.
So this is what's going to happen.
I wanted to hear it, but I didn't hear it.
So this is what's going to happen, Dr. George Fraser. We're going to go to Hiawatha. My brother, Kaba Kamene. Professor, can you speak to what our good brother just shared? And this will be Dr. George Fraser's primer.
Absolutely. And first, may I just thank you, Brother Zoe, for inviting me to be a part of this program this evening. And I just spend great honor to my brother, Minister Tony Muhammad, and to my brother, Dr. George Fraser. I'm just honored to be able to share this time with you I've so long admired the work that you're doing and continue to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when I listen to our brother, Minister Tony Muhammad, speaking, what I got from him as he spoke about being the essence of blackness, and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, in his teaching us that blackness is not just beautiful. Blackness is the only thing that exists. And that, as he said, all colors come from the blackness. Now, for those that may not know, but those that do know, my background is education, specifically early childhood. Specifically, I've taught every grade, I've taught every subject, including college. And so when I was teaching my kindergarten children about the essence of blackness, I actually proved it. And I asked our audience, in their convenience, to try it. And what I would do is I would lay out all the primary colors in crayons. And I would lay out
Dr. Fraser is changing phones. Don't go to
the
that.
yellow, the green, the blue, the indigo, and the purple. And we'd start.
So you keep saying Fraser, Fraser, and call him Doc. Don't call him George. He told you that already. Yes, sir. He's gonna get offended by that. Thank you.
And then we would take the orange, and over the red line we draw a line. Over the next color, yellow, draw a line over the line. To the green, to the blue, to the indigo. And indigo is the only color of the rainbow that repeats itself twice. Because now you're returning to the perfect black. We do indigo, and then we would do another indigo, and then we would do the purple. And what's the last color of that line? It's black.
Wow.
It's the perfect black. Not just black. It's the perfect black. You've gone through the from ultraviolet to infrared. Blackness is not just beautiful. Blackness is the only color that exists, and all other colors come out of the blackness. And if you wonder if this could be true, just go out tonight and look up at the night sky. What do you see?
Blackness.
And the only thing that you see outside of the blackness are the stars, and the stars come from condensed carbon that become nanodiamonds that explode, implode, and become stars. So even stars are crystallized blackness, like diamonds in the earth.
But see, can I just say, this is powerful knowledge, right? This is transformative information. But how do we get it to our brothers who are spiritually impoverished, intellectually impoverished, impoverished of understanding, impoverished of who they are? Like, I asked this question. I'm going to ask this question really quickly to my brother, Minister Tony Muhammad. Do many black men simply lack self-love and self-discipline? If so, why? And how do they climb out of that pit?
Right. Well, yes, self-hatred was imposed on us by our open enemy. And so when you have 360 years of chattel slavery, and when you teach the black man and woman to hate themselves, to detest themselves, so now you take on the mindset of he or she who dominated you. See, not only do you take on that mindset, but it even becomes genetically modified that you will even pass on that black self-hatred to your unborn children because you've been practicing it. Once you practice a mindset for more than 20 years, then that 20-year mindset get imprinted in your DNA. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is why he was born, to break that mindset of telling the black man that you are the direct descendant of God himself. See, when I heard that as a black brother selling dope, when I heard that as a womanizer, that shook my foundation. Because in high school, I was always told I was nothing by the white teacher. In my high school, I was told that I should emulate the white male patriarchy. See? But when I heard that, I always knew that it was something more to me than what was being told. But who had the courage to tell it? And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, brother, do not speak to the black man's condition. Speak to him through his nature. Because if you talk about his condition, you'll keep him stimulated. But if you go to his nature, you'll lift him from that point on. See, so when I go among gang members, I don't see a gang member. I see a God.
That's right. That's right.
I don't remind him that he's a gang member. I said, brother, do you know who you are? I'm a role in this. No, brother. You're a general. You're a God. And you get his attention. So that's how you begin to destroy. And it takes time to restore the black man back to his original self. It took time to destroy us. So it's going to take time to put us back. And this is why, dear brother, I don't care what anyone say. I don't know of many organization out there that can point to black men as in the Nation of Islam. Not by my might, but I can go in any hood. Why do they respect us? Why do they say, there go the brothers? How have I been able to stop 4 riots just by showing up and the homies submit? Because they see black male masculinity rooted in God.
Man, but when your weaknesses, when your darkness, when your generation, I don't call them generational curses, I call them generational tasks. When your generational tasks get a PR person and a marketing budget, and you get to rap about it, and you get to put it out there, and people fail to realize that music, although you say it's entertainment, it's actually entrainment. It is teaching the listener how to act, how to walk, how to think, how to behave. Which is stronger, knowledge of self that is self-authored, or the music, right? Or the content that's being put out. You know how Hollywood say content is king. Which is stronger, brother? Which is more appealing?
Well, God's language, the knowledge of God and the knowledge of self is more appealing. And look, brother, rap started consciously. See, it was conscious rap music. And when our open enemy saw that conscious rap music was lifting the consciousness of black men, white supremacy fear free-thinking black men. See, black men who destroy white supremacy. So they took it off the rail and introduced gangster rap. So now the KRS-Ones, the Public Enemies are no longer there.
X-Clan.
See?
Yeah.
So now, again, so you've taken it because now you're using rap music along with drugs. See, when you are using rap and drugs, that's pain, drugs, and hypnosis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See? So now on a beat, now like a Frankenstein, you got your you got your earplugs in, electronic devices. So just like Frankenstein, if you remember the monster, he had 2 prongs on his neck. So God in the Holy Quran said, I'm as close to man as his own jugular vein. So if I got my earphones in and I'm hearing B's and H's and kill a brother and kill this and go be a criminal that, you know, and I'm high on top of that, I'm being hypnotized.
Wow, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. My brother, you got to come in and share with us, man. Minister Tony is cooking with grease. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, come in and talk to me about what my brother just shared with us, man, because I feel like we're programmed, and sometimes, don't blame me, but sometimes it feels like it's a weight that you can't lift. How do you lift it, brother?
By going to the young people. That is why my primary license was in early childhood. I was a kindergarten teacher in my early career in New York. And if I knew, just as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all those that came before us transformed the adult male in particular, but sisters too. Just as he transformed them, he took them through a process of deprogramming. It's called reassociation psychologically in science, because I like to drop it like science. Science comes from the word scient, which means knowledge. And so I don't want the emotion to come involved, because then we go on to another track. So if you look at the science of what we're talking about, when they ripped us from Africa, We had associated our lives. And as the great Senegalese scholar Sheikh Anta Diop teaches us, when someone wishes to oppress you, there are three things they'll take from you. They'll take your history, they'll take your language, and they'll take your psychological factor. Dr. Leonard Jeffries says that our psychological factors are our VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. And when someone who wishes to oppress you takes your history, your language, your values, interests, and principles from you, they then superimpose their history, their language, their values, interests, and principles on you. So therefore, any decision you come to is never in your best interest because you are looking at the world through someone else's eyes. And so what our ancestors, such as the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the Honorable Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Minister Elijah Muhammad, Minister Malcolm X, Minister Clarence 13X, Father Allah, what all of those that came before us did was they reprogrammed us and returned us back to who we were before we were programmed. What I did was I went to the children who were 4 and 5 years old, who had not yet been programmed in the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, who by the fourth grade, as has been told to us by great scholars, you get into the fourth grade syndrome.
Come on, brother, that's real true.
And you see, the fourth grade syndrome, from an educational perspective, here's how it works. When you are in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that's called early childhood. Third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sometimes sixth grade, that's elementary. Then you got middle school, then you got high school, and then you have college. In the very early years, you are introduced to learning how to read, which means that they get the cutesy little games, they get the animals, the visits to the zoos, you're counting bears and monkeys and all sorts of flowers. Beautiful thing. But when you get into the fourth grade, that is when you start to read to learn. There's a difference. Learning to read are the games. You're learning your alphabet, your sounds, your phonics. I've taught it all, so I understand how the game works. When you get into the fourth grade, that's when they introduce you to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson,
like patriarch,
the so-called forefathers. And so when they do that, and the young child of African descent does not see him and herself, they get turned off. That creates, according to Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, the fourth grade syndrome, where you're turned off. Because when you don't see yourself, you have to ask yourself, why would I be interested in something I'm not a part of?
I can't see me.
That's right. I'm not in that picture.
That's just a simple concept. And so what I did is I decided to become an early childhood teacher. I became a kindergarten teacher. I learned how to associate them with themselves before other people would come and try to disassociate themselves from their natural person, from their understanding that you are the creator having a human experience. And every one of you in this room is a genius.
Man, let me do this.
All I can do is facilitate you finding that out.
Wow. Let me do this really quickly. Our good brother, Dr. George Fraser, is back in the building. Had a little technical difficulty, but it's okay. You back in the building, Dr. George C. Fraser. You back in the building. All right. Listen, I know brothers and sisters got to get on the same page.
That's right.
And we got to stop competing with each other. We got to stop being combative towards each other.
That's right.
But I also feel that brothers have to realign themselves with that internal Geiger counter that says, I can lead her with confidence. Many of us try to lead her with our wallet and not with our character. Dr. George C. Fraser, I need you to help me explain to the brothers how to walk that path. How can we develop this internal fortitude that would make us true leaders in the world? Because I know we need unity in order to build wealth. What are the starting points that we must take, the starting steps that we must take?
Know thyself.
Mm.
Know thy own self.
Boy, it
Be
comes
true.
right
And we
back.
don't know who we are. We have no clue. We are out of our natural minds, as Professor Kaba and Minister Muhammad has touched on. We don't know who we are. We are the children of the slaves that would not die, that we have the genetic encoding of the great kings and queens of Africa, that we were building pyramids and solving complex engineering problems when other cultures were living in caves, practicing cannibalism.
Mm.
And so until we know who we are, until we understand an African-centered worldview versus a Eurocentric worldview, we have to deal with those folks. We really need to understand their worldview and how they think so we can navigate and negotiate the tactics and strategies necessary to free ourselves, which begins with freeing our mind. So let me just give you a quick example. I put this in my book, my first book I wrote 32 years ago, Success Runs in Our Race. And one of the edicts I said is that we must think race and culture first. Not only, but certainly first. Thus we must know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
What is a Eurocentric worldview, Dr. Fraser? It's very simple, written in Success Runs in Our Race. Order is imposed by the stronger force. The stronger force gains the advantage by ordering the universe as it wishes. That's how white folk think. That's their worldview. The African-centered worldview is the universe is active and alive.
He's killing it. Let him go to the bottom because he's been missing. Let him ride to the bottom. Get him when you need to. Let him go.
As well as the Creator's divine laws. That's an African-centered worldview. The gap between our worldview and white folks' worldview is as wide as the Grand Canyon. Now, Eurocentric thinking, survival of the fittest, promotes a drive for mastery and control of nature and the accumulation of possessions. That's Eurocentric thinking. African-centered thinking is that there is a oneness of all things, that life is primary and must reflect a divine nature. Group maintenance, collectiveness, and sharing are essential. Again, the gap between how white folks think and how we think, if we are woke and conscious, is as wide as the Grand Canyon. Stokely Carmichael said it beautifully. I was born in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York, 1945. 1962, I was running the streets of Harlem, and I saw this young brother on a soapbox. I was 17 years old, with Stokely Carmichael, who later changed his name to Kwame Ture. And here's what Stokely said. Now, what I did not realize that when Stokely was speaking, that he was programming me. He had put the seeds in my subconscious mind that would flower and ultimately would become the guiding light of my own life. I didn't realize it that at 17 years old. But Stokely said simply, no black person in this country makes an advancement solely based on his or her talent or worth. All individual advancement is based on mass struggle. We make no progress in this world without shedding our blood. Therefore, your advancement and success does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. And if you do not use your success or advancement for the benefit of your people, it is a betrayal of
As long as you don't get to 831.
Their blood for you. Now let me paraphrase something Minister Farrakhan said, who I believe is the greatest.
Jump down.
Wait.
In this world.
Dr. George Fraser, listen. You are cooking with the rarest
Yes, he
kind
is.
of grease
Yes, he
right
is.
now.
Yes, he is.
But I got to carry you forward. Hold that thought, because I want you to have enough space to lay this thing flat. Dr. George C. Fraser is cooking. Man, Agenda for America, the African American man's perspective. Us, we talking tonight. When we come forward, we got a lot to talk about. Woo-wee. Man, I'm just throwing y'all alley-oops. Y'all do what you do. Y'all do what you do. Man.
Oh, this is good.
Man, oh man, it's Shevitz.
Oh man, this is
Boy.
Our problem was his phone line kept
His
echoing.
phone kept dropping.
Yeah.
We had to try 3 phones in his house. We finally got it right, but I'm glad we did though.
We got it right.
He's getting it in now.
Yeah,
Yes.
man.
So we'll come back, let him finish his thing,
Yeah,
then you
please.
get.
Then
and then pick up that
I got
pace.
questions.
Brother Tony
This
back
is
in,
all
everybody.
good, man. Hey, I'm sitting here learning.
Now y'all cooking with
And
grease,
love it.
with fish grease.
Fish grease. Tony know what he doing. Listen, I'm not worried about him. I slide him and I'm gonna throw it over here and I'm gonna look over here. He just gonna go.
I can see his head moving. I said, when George does finish, Brother Tony go there.
Oh,
man.
Tony got
Oh,
some
yeah.
more. It's already done.
He done set him up now.
Yeah, no, man.
That Afrocentric, that example he gave,
Hey, and
as
they-
wide as the Grand Canyon. I was like, good
Right.
Lord.
That's
Hey,
right.
listen.
Because
And
look,
every time you check me on the air, they hear it. Look,
But look,
the YouTube.
I'm sorry.
They be like,
but everything
be quiet, Tavis,
look,
leave us all alone.
all Eurocentric thinking came from black people.
Come on.
They steal. They haven't originated nothing.
Come on.
How they hear me from your headphones?
The headphones are right here.
Don't give it away.
Oh.
They listening. Every time, listen, here it comes. Now, this is what gotta happen, Zoe. What I need you to do is phrase sir.
You gotta tell me something.
It's phrase sir, Zoe. He don't like that,
The
Zoe.
executive producer ain't supposed to be hearing all that. You said they set me up, Brother Tony?
Hey, we love you, Tavis. They love you, man. They
I'm trying to do
waving.
my job, make him sound perfect. And he got me being front on Nazareth.
They said this Coach Tavis.
Fine, so.
Get us right.
I believe you was on the rest of the night.
We love you, man.
You just hang yourself. So, top of the hour though.
Yeah.
That's coaching. The show close.
Yeah.
Get that page flip so you don't get lost.
Top of the hour.
You gotta read that at the very end. All right, you're good.
There we go.
Thanks, sir.
I love
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to Agenda for America, an
We love
African-American
it.
perspective. A national conversation presented by Smiley Audio Media Incorporated, KBLA Talk 1580, and executive produced by Tavis Smiley. Tonight's conversation is the state of black men in America, and features an all-star panel who we will rejoin in just a moment. The moderator this evening is Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason on KBLA Talk 1580. We hope you're enjoying Agenda for America, an African-American perspective. Here now, Zoe Williams.
Man, I don't want to waste no time. Dr. George C. Fraser was cooking, and we want to get him back in the kitchen so he can finish that thought. Come on, brother.
Okay. I want to paraphrase Minister Farrakhan, who was on the Breakfast Club not long ago. And as I started to say, I believe he is the greatest black leader that we have. He is the freest black man in America, that is for sure.
Yes, sir.
But and again, I'm paraphrasing him. He said that here we are, nearly 50 million black people, and here we are begging somebody else, can I have a job? Do you have something for me to do?
Come on, Dr.
Can you
Fraser.
feed me? Will you educate me? Well, this is the crime, the ignorance of black people. We have to erase the ignorance. We have to erase the ignorance to get us started doing something for ourselves. And you cannot blame others if they do not want to give you the money. Okay? Now, this is Minister Farrakhan. Now, the beautiful Toni Morrison said it beautifully. She said, if you are free, you need to free somebody else. And if you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else.
That's right.
The great African-centered scholar, Dr. John Henrik Clarke, the mentor of Malcolm X,
said it more simply. He said, take what you do best and do it for your people. Now, the giants of our culture have given us our marching orders. We must pull ourselves out of this ignorance of ourselves, understand what we are up against, understand what their thinking and worldview is, and design the products, the services, the strategies, and tactics necessary to fight their oppression, which is psychological, which Professor Kaba talked about, right? So we have to provide role models, and they can help us change the narrative of who black men really are. What am I saying? And I'll close with these couple of points. A, we need black men because they say if the fish stinks, look to the head.
Come on.
Leadership. It's leadership. I can't say it enough. We need black male leadership that has the intellectual rigor that we are hearing on this show tonight, combined with activism. In other words, not only can they understand and articulate and intellectualize the problem, right? But they can activate solutions to that problem, as both Minister Muhammad and Professor Kaba has articulated. So what am I talking about? We need models.
That's right.
Right.
We need coaching.
Right.
We need mentors.
Right.
And we need therapy. We need critical thinkers.
Yes.
And the way you get critical thinkers is intellectual curiosity.
Yes.
Intellectual curiosity drives reading and studying, and that becomes the foundation for critical thinkers. We do not have enough critical thinkers of the caliber of the brothers
that is
on this call.
Right.
So that's what we need. What are the solutions? I think a rites of passage program for both male and females, which is what we started in our African-centered charter schools. We need to educate our own as best as we can.
Man.
I could not save the 60,000 black children in the substandard urban Cleveland schools where there's a 51% dropout rate of black boys, but I could save, and I started this 17 years ago, 300 of them a year. Right? I could save them. So me and Dr. Claude David Whitaker started an African-centered charter school. That's activism, right? Activism.
Right.
We need more male educators. We need more awards celebrating the greatness of black people, black men and women. Self-recognition, self-encouragement. Right?
Come on.
Need, and I think it was Professor Copper who said, we know that we have a reading problem. We know that we don't read as rigorously as we should. Right? We need, what's the old saying? If you want to hide something from the
so get it when you can.
We need to encourage reading and writing. We need to write our stories. Now, more of us are reading and writing than ever before, but not enough of us. Right? Yes.
I have to ask this question because listening to the three of you, it has put me in a mindset that for the most part, right? For the most part, in general, some but not all, but for the most part, both men and women in our community are spiritual children.
Yes, we are.
We're infants when it comes to being truly aware, truly self-aware. I've heard Dr. George C. Fraser. I've heard Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. I've heard my good brother, Minister Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad. I'm going to get his name now. Don't get it. I've heard you all say, we think like white people. And this ain't just for men. I know this is about men tonight, the state of African American men, black men in America, but this is both black men and women. You know why we think this way? Because ultimately he signs that check. Spirituality, unity, knowledge of self, none of that stuff matters, because in our mind, speaking of the children grow up thinking none of that matters because it doesn't pay. How can we make them understand that the payment that comes from the pen of self-authorship, the pen of community and unification, this stuff right here is worth way more than some dead presidents, because you can build something with your people when you're on one accord. Minister Tony?
Yeah, well, you just said it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan taught me that anyone who subscribes for you, the diameter of your thinking, meaning if they're teaching you, they will also control the circumference of your activity. And so we have to get from under their education, because in his education rooted in white supremacy, we have made everything white right. In fact, he has made himself a God besides God to us.
That's right.
He is not God. You see, he's not that. And so therefore, Doctor said it all, brother. We have to now begin to erode and murder the germs of ineffectiveness that he's put in black people. Right. Minister Farrakhan said to me, brother, look, white skin ain't our enemy. He said, the brown man, his skin ain't our enemy. He said, you know what the biggest enemy to black progress is? Ignorance.
Right. That's right.
And see, through education, we can teach black excellence.
That's right.
And once we teach black excellence, connecting him to his black self, see, we're just like Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge, in their Eurocentric, he didn't come into himself until some angel walked him back into the history.
Right.
See, you don't have to teach us religion. All you got to do is walk me back into my history. I'll walk back into my proper mindset. And once we do that, and Minister Farrakhan said we have to destroy enmity, envy, and jealousy that was put in us on the plantation of distrusting one another. Once we do that through education, brother, we will be like every other ethnic group that came into this country. See, the Chinese never get accused for being anti-American. The Koreans never get accused for being anti-American. The Armenians never get accused. And then they have an area in America that's named after their country.
That's right.
See?
Wow.
Chinatown. You can't put a soul food in Chinatown. They ain't gonna let you. You can't put a black bank in Chinatown. I ain't mad at that. They're not gonna let you, because why? They are rooted in themselves and they are self-determined to survive as a group. Ooh, when we do that. But each one of them ethnic groups nurtured themselves to strength off of black ignorance, because from us there's over a $1.3 trillion spending power that we have in this country, which will make us the third largest country in the world. But through our ignorance, we give it to everybody else, and that money don't circulate in our own neighborhood. So we can't portray the right images of ourselves. And this is why I respect Jewish power. Say anything against them, you better have their image right the way they want it to be, or you get attacked. Why we can't be like that? And so the doctor is right, man. We need black schools unapologetically to teach a black curriculum, to put the black man and woman back in place. Then we'll get cooperation from both the black and male, the black female and the black male. It's all rooted in education. Bro.
Wow.
Who's teaching us?
Professor, wait, I got to get Professor Kaba, Hiawatha Kabane, and then I'm going to come back to you, good brother George.
Okay.
Professor Kabane, are you in here? Talk to me, man.
I'm in here.
I'm in here and I'm learning. I got my pen and paper.
Hey,
Come
me-
on,
me
because
too, brother.
everybody in here cooking right now. We got to get it right. Let's
Man,
go.
I'm gonna have my doctorate when I leave here.
Listen, let me tell you, the more I learn, how much more I have to learn.
Mm.
That's right. Family, I come out of 45 years of being an educator. And I just want to tell you two things that I picked up from listening to Dr. Frazier and to Minister Muhammad. I come to our community as it relates to their comments about education. I come as someone who's lived it. When I began my career in New York as a kindergarten teacher, and I developed my relationship with my children, 4 and 5 years of age, I could write a book on my experiences with my children. Young brothers tell me, you look like my daddy. I wish you were my daddy. Can I call you daddy? And my response was, I am your daddy.
Come on.
I may not have brought you in the world biologically, but in Africa, every adult male is called Baba.
Yes, that's
and
right.
every adult female is called Mama. I am the surrogate father.
Teach, man.
And if there's anything I can ever do, besides the math and the science and the language arts, if there's anything you ever want to talk to me about, I'm here for you. I get messages from students today. See, they didn't know me as Kabahaya Wapa. They knew me as Booker Taliaferro Coleman Jr. But as of May 10th, 2002, I was born again to Kabahaya Wapa Kamane.
Teach.
And in that, I became the unifier, because that's what my name means. When I went to the elders and the shamans, when I was correcting my name, because I don't call it changing my name, I'm correcting my name. I'm returning back to who I was before I was so rudely interrupted by the likes of them.
I like that.
And so,
Rudely
in developing this relationship, I'd like to now go into a brilliant scholar by the name of Dr. Edwin Nichols, who is a clinical psychiatrist. He's done phenomenal work. And he looks at the original race, which is African, and the two ethnic stocks that came from the African, which is who we call, as one total group, Indo-European.
Right.
But we could call them European and Asian. And he said that the worldview of the African is person to person. The society itself, the civilization itself, bounces off of how I see my brothers and my sisters and how they see me. The society is built from that. Because of the nature of the Asian who went into the Eastern Mountains, they depended on the group. So their worldview is person to group. The Europeans' perspective is from person to material wealth. And so as we develop our understanding of the worldview that we need to go back to, we have to understand that, like for instance, you know, you go to work and you're talking to somebody of European descent, and you're even sharing pictures of your family, you're talking all sorts of things. Then you go out to lunch alone, and the person that you were sharing all that information passes you on the street like they don't know you. That is because their worldview objectified you. Their worldview is to objectify everything outside of themselves. Once we understand who we're dealing with, then we can understand this. In 1995, I taught a course in cultural education at Fordham University. That same year, October, towards the end of October, I brought 6 brothers that had attended the Million Man March. That was my last term teaching at Fordham University. Because those brothers came back from that experience glowing and understanding who they were as men. one more thing I'd like to say. When we would have open school night, because at this time I was teaching in a school, but I was directing social studies. We had 35 schools in our district, and I managed the social studies department for the 35 schools. 27 elementary schools and 8 middle schools. When we would have open school night, sometimes we would have one page, and maybe 17 parents would come in to open school night. Reverend Jesse Jackson and other speakers told the audience, as I'm telling the audience tonight that's listening, when come to November next month, there's a chance that you're going to have open school night. The fathers, go to your children's school. That November of 1995, remember, I'm used to all the years. I've been teaching since 79. Open school night, we had maybe 3, 4, 5 parents come, open school night. Maybe 8 came during the day, because we always had a session at night, a session during the day. That November 1995, I saw 3 pages of attendance, and the great majority of signatures were the father. When a father goes into a school, it changes the dynamic of the relationship of the teacher. I don't care what culture they are. That's right. When a man comes in to check on his child, if an uncle comes in,
changes it.
Older male cousin comes in, it changes the way in which that child is going to be looked upon by the principal and by the teachers.
Wow. So look,
we must teach our own children, family. Dr. Clark has something on YouTube. We ain't got no friends.
So look,
you have to know the difference between a friend, an ally, and an enemy.
Ooh, yes.
I love it. Russia and China. Malcolm tells us Russia and China were our friends, and Germany, Italy, and Japan were our enemies. After World War II, Russia and China became our enemies, and Germany, Italy, and Japan became our friends. Sometimes we do not understand the difference between an enemy and an ally.
Wow.
Because an ally can become a greater enemy to you after the deed is done, and we still want to be friends. Remember, it's the person-to-person relationship that is the African worldview. But there are some people that you got to understand. They will never be your friend. They'll be a part-time ally, but most of them will always be your enemy.
Ooh, listen. Hey, this is Agenda for America. Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, moderating. I'm trying to moderate and learn and take notes. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene just hit us upside the dome piece. Listen very carefully. We got 7 minutes left. So I want to get as much information out as I possibly can. So I'm going to ask my brothers to truncate your answers so we could get as much information and insight out as we possibly can. And I'm going to ask Dr. George C. Fraser, and then I'm going to go to, of course, Tony Muhammad. But I have to ask this question. How do we get our brothers? Because we don't have any other examples. We don't look to each other unless it's sports or rap. So how do we get our brothers to stop idolizing the oppressor in his position? How do we get our brothers to get to a space where he can look himself in the face and accept who he is without judgment? Because nobody broke shames us worse than us. We don't, the wealth gap is so large, we have no business broke shaming nobody, because the rich and the high and mighty are far and few in between. How do we get a brother who doesn't have the resources to be able to look at himself and say, the spark of God is still in me, and anything and everything is possible if I just focus on it? Dr. George C. Fraser, go first.
Beautiful segue.
Professor Carver said it. We all must be the fathers of our children. I tell young people all the time when I speak in HBCs and so forth, I says, if an old dude ever gives you advice while peeling an apple with a pocket knife and eating pieces right off the blade,
Yeah.
you should probably take that advice.
He should listen.
No question about that.
Woo.
So let me just say very, 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 very quickly, when we finish pontificating ad nauseum about our issues,
Yeah.
somebody's got to write a check. I want to say that and still be loved, right?
Come on.
Right?
Come on. Come on.
Pontificating ad nauseum about our issues, somebody's got to write a check.
Wow.
Money has to be exchanged to do things, and we need to use those resources to teach our people financial education and business development. Right? We are a financially illiterate people by evidence that we are at the bottom of every single economic statistic that matters in America. Not all of us are financially illiterate, but just most of us. So we need financial education. We developed a WINS Wealth Building Center and curriculum. It is an African-centered curriculum around 75 modules of everything you want to know about money, management, and finances. Now, why is that important? Because black people learn differently than white people.
Right.
We are oral, visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and auditory learners, right? So you need a curriculum that addresses that style of learning. We don't necessarily learn in the same methodology as white folk.
Right.
So we need financial education, which is really economics, right? And business education. We have the fewest number of businesses per capita of any cultural group in this country, and we came over here on the freaking Mayflower. Okay?
Wow.
So we need to develop more businesses. Fiber in those businesses, circle the wagons, support each other, recycle black dollars, all these tropes you've heard 1,000 times. Let me just conclude by saying this. We must not ever forget, brothers and sisters who are listening, that we're all drinking from wells that we did not dig, that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. 250 years, from 1619 to 1864, 250 years, our ancestors fought and died for our freedom. From 1864 to 1964, a bloody 100-year fight for civil rights, voting rights, and public access. And we must never forget that. Therefore, the question, my final question to our audience is, are we worthy of that legacy?
Wow.
And if so, if you think we are worthy of that legacy, what then will be the legacy of Generation X, Y, Z, and Generation Alpha? We know what the legacy of baby boomers are. Civil rights, voting rights, etc. So that's our legacy. What will be their legacy, right? What will our people be saying about our children, those generations, 150 years from now? I hope it will be closing the income and wealth gap. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, Dr. George C. Fraser took up all the time. Listen, we got about 30 seconds.
Oh, it's easy.
I'm going to run to you, and then I'm going to run to Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, my brother Tony Muhammad.
Well, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that in the black community, we've tried everything except unity. Not uniformity. Uniformity is when everybody feels we got to be a Christian or a Muslim,
right,
or agnostic or a Pan-Africanist. Or no. We need to take the best in every category, the best financial mind, the best educators, the best black financiers, the best black banks, come in a room, organize, and come up with an agenda to lift ourselves up by the bootstrap. This is what the community should demand of us.
Hey, Professor Kaba, what you got for me? You got about 30 seconds.
Please go to my website. I have a free e-course in my study guide. 44 pages.
What's the website? Tell us real quick.
www.kabakamene.com. Dr. Clark said you may not get to your destination, but if you move a roadmap, those that come behind will. That's my roadmap for the future.
Thank you, brother. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you.
brother Zoe, for this great show.
But most
Wow.
importantly, we must lead by example.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Thank you to my great panel, my august panel, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, Dr. George C. Fraser, and my brother, Minister Tony Muhammad.
Thank you, brother Zoe. Great show.
You have been listening to Agenda for America, an African American perspective. We hope you enjoyed this State of Black Men in America conversation. We thank all of our panelists this evening and look forward to next week's conversation. Why We Can't Wait, The Urgency of Now, moderated by none other than Tavis Smiley. This program was executive produced by Tavis Smiley. Our board operator is Andy Cieli. I'm Zoe Williams, the voice of reason. Thank you for tuning in. And be sure to vote on Tuesday or November 8th. Just do it. You got to do it on or before. Make it happen. My man. Brother. Hey, like I said before, man, we got to get back together, man, and
Your service, brother.
go break some bread. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody for tuning in.